Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most notorious couples, Bonnie and Clyde. But we're going beyond the gunfire and dusty getaways. We're going to uncover the hidden story of the poet and the gunman, a tale of love, loyalty, and a surprising artistic streak that bloomed in the midst of chaos. Most of us know the iconic images: a beret-clad Bonnie Parker, cigar in her mouth, propped against a Ford V8 with a shotgun in hand. We see a hardened criminal, a gun moll who is as dangerous as her partner, Clyde Barrow. But what if I told you that behind that defiant stare was the soul of the poet? That in the quiet moments between robberies, Bonnie wasn't just cleaning guns, she was writing verses. One of her most famous poems is called The Story of Suicide Sal. It's a gritty, autobiographical piece about a woman who falls for a criminal, trading a normal life for one on the run. She writes, "From heartbreak some people have suffered, from weariness some people have died. But take it all in all, our troubles are small, till we get like Bonnie and Clyde." Even then, she was aware of their growing legend, and there's a sense of tragic inevitability in her words. This wasn't just a doodle in a notebook. It was a confession, a prediction, and a reflection of her inner turmoil. She saw their path clearly and knew where it would end. The romance between Bonnie and Clyde wasn't just about adrenaline and shared danger. It was also incredibly tender, documented in letters they exchanged while being hunted across the country. These weren't grand, eloquent love letters you might imagine from a movie. They were raw, desperate, and deeply affectionate, scribbled on scraps of paper and passed between them in stolen cars. They spoke of a future they knew they'd likely never have: a small house with a garden, a life away from the headlines. In these letters, you see past the criminals and find two young people, barely out of their teens, clinging to each other as their world closed in. They were each other's only constant, their only source of comfort in a life of constant fear. Their bond was famously unbreakable, and Clyde's loyalty was tested time and time again. Early in their crime spree, Bonnie was captured and sent to jail. Clyde could have easily disappeared, started fresh with a new partner, a less complicated life. But he didn't. He was determined to get her back. He orchestrated a daring plan, not to rob a bank, but to break Bonnie out of Kaufman County Jail. He even had a fellow gang member intentionally get arrested just to smuggle a gun inside to her. The plan didn't quite work out, but Bonnie eventually got out, and their reunion solidified their commitment. For Clyde, life on the run was meaningless without Bonnie by his side. It wasn't about the money or the fame. It was about them together against the world. This brings us to the fascinating dual nature of Bonnie Parker. On one hand, she was an active participant in their crimes. Eyewitness accounts place her at robberies, wielding weapons and helping Clyde escape. She was no damsel in distress. She chose this life and embraced the role of the outlaw. But on the other hand, she was an artist. She found solace and expression in poetry and photography. The famous photos of them posing with guns weren't just for show. Bonnie had a keen eye for imagery. She was curating their own legend in real time, understanding the power of a picture long before the age of social media. She was both the subject and the creator of her own myth, a poet who wrote with both a pen and a shotgun. This complexity is what makes her so endlessly fascinating. She wasn't just a sidekick. She was a co-author of their story. And it was during these years on the run that their legend truly began to take shape. The public's perception of them was a strange mix of fear and admiration. In the depths of the Great Depression, many people felt let down by the system, by the banks and the government. To them, Bonnie and Clyde weren't just criminals. They were rebels striking back at the institutions that had failed them. The newspapers sensationalized their exploits, turning them into folk heroes, a modern-day Robin Hood and Maid Marian, though they rarely gave anything to the poor. The photos Bonnie took of them, looking confident and defiant, were published everywhere, feeding this narrative. They became celebrities, their every move tracked by a public that was both terrified and captivated. They were no longer just two kids from Texas. They were a symbol of rebellion, a living, breathing legend that was growing larger than life with every bank they robbed and every state line they crossed. Bonnie's final poem, The End of the Line, which was found in their car after they were killed, is perhaps the most powerful testament to her self-awareness. She wrote it knowing their time was short. The poem reads like a final press release, an epitaph she wrote for herself and Clyde. Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To a few, it'll be grief to the law, relief. But it's death for Bonnie and Clyde. She knew exactly how this story would end. There was no illusion of a happy ending, no escape. There was only the inevitable, violent conclusion. And in a way, she embraced it. By writing about it, she took control of their narrative one last time, ensuring that even in death, their story would be told on their own terms. On May 23, 1934, on a rural road in Louisiana, that prediction came true. Lone men ambushed their car, firing over 130 rounds. There was no chance for surrender. It was a brutal end to a brutal career. But their deaths didn't end the legend. It immortalized it. The bullet-riddled car and their tragic end became the final, dramatic chapter of the story they had spent years crafting. The poet and the gunman were gone, but the myth of Bonnie and Clyde had just begun. So, why do we remain so fascinated by them nearly a century later? I think it's because their story is more than just a true crime tale. It's a story about love in an impossible situation, about loyalty against all odds, and about the strange, blurred line between fame and infamy. It's the story of a woman who was both a hardened criminal and a sensitive artist, a walking contradiction who helped build her own myth. They lived fast, died young, and left behind a story so powerful it continues to capture our imagination. They weren't heroes, but their story is a gripping human tragedy, a reminder of how two people can create their own world, even if it's destined to burn. What do you think? Was Bonnie a victim of circumstance, or the willing architect of her own downfall? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the hidden corners of history. We'll see you in the next one.